All right, Ted, I would like to try and convince the dragon to help us instead of fighting us.
Dave, are you serious?
Listen, I've got a great persuasion check. I'm really, really good at persuading.
All right, I'll allow it. This is not what I had planned, but who am I to stop your choices?
All right, Ted, let's discuss using the BBEG in the social pillar of 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, I'm Nerdarchy Steve, and as usual, I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
If you want more D&D videos in your YouTube feed, no need to charm us, just hit that subscribe button.
You're looking for more Nerdarchy videos, then I hope my persuasion roll DC is not too high to help you hit that notification bell.
So today we're going to be talking about using the D&D BBEG in the social pillar of the game. Before we get started, we just want to let you know if you enjoy the content we put out and you want a cool way to help support the channel and get something cool in the process, you can go over to Nerdarchy the store and purchase the PDF for out-of-the-box encounters. That's great drop-in content that you can use at a moment's notice. Whether your players are walking through the town in the wilderness or in a dungeon, we've got an encounter just for them.
Yeah, out of the box is really great, and there's stuff for everything. So whether your players have made a turn that you weren't expecting, or whether you just haven't prepped enough, out of the box has got ready-made encounters for you to just drop right into your game.
There'll be a link in the description below. We are talking about the social pillar of Dungeons & Dragons, and how do you craft antagonists and villains, enemies, bad guys, whatever you want to call them, for that pillar? Or do we just always have to beat things up?
D&D is a game that is divided into the 3 primary pillars: combat, social, and exploration. And it's entirely possible to plan, run, and execute a game that focuses on one of these primary pillars. And for this one, we're going to look at the social pillar and how we can make a game. We're going to break this video up into a section for the DMs and a section for our players.
All right, Ted. So for the DMs, why can't the players just beat up the bad guy and use violence as a solution?
Well, violence isn't always going to be able to work. Even in a, fantasy setting, you're going to have to deal with laws. You're going to have to deal with those people who are above reproach, politically, or, maybe they're a member of nobility, that you can't just go out and kill them because there are going to be ramifications that you're going to have to contend with.
Yeah, maybe even there's somebody that is beloved by the populace, and you would actually be seen as the bad guy. They are your nemesis, they are the bad guy, but not everyone sees them that way. That's one of the problems. Another problem is they can literally just be an antagonist, meaning they're not necessarily good or evil. They're just opposed to whatever you're doing. And that alone may not be a reason to go out and just murder them or beat them up.
When you're in a town setting, there is the city guard. And while, yes, you might have the power to, well, I'm going to kill this person, and then any of the guard that have, that come after me thereafter, that just creates problem upon problem. So you have to look at, what is the here, what is the now. So that means you're going to have to contend with them in their battlefield, which might be the political arena or, just the social arena of, the nobility or whatever the circle that you're dealing with is.
Yeah, this kind of bad guy really works best for political intrigue.
All right, so, if you're talking about running this as a political intrigue game, how does one go about doing that?
Right. I mean, it could be political or even not political. Violence isn't going to work, and you have to use social maneuvering instead. Yeah, so, one of the things could be is they might even just have information that you need or other reasons why you need them alive. There's a function that they perform that they still need to perform, or somebody has to perform it, so eliminating them actually just creates more problems. Sure, you can replace them, but what if there is no one to replace them for whatever that specific task is?
Or, what if this is another one of those, political machinations that you take out this person and the follow-up is worse. So it's not going to be, well, I just take them out of the equation. You need to beat them, economically, politically. You need to get the information that's going to remove them from the problem, unveil whatever the mystery is that they're, ingrained in, whatever this plot is, so that they it is revealed to everyone that they are a legitimate problem and that you are indeed the actual hero despite whatever they have pushed against you.
Yeah, I mean, a good way of looking at that would be, look at Game of Thrones, right? You get rid of this piss poor leader, but you get Joffrey instead, who is kind of homicidal and a maniac, right? So the successor to this leader is actually much worse. So you don't want to take out this leader and leave this vacuum that's going to get filled by someone that's worse, because all the legality of things, is pointing to that person, and there's no legal reason why you can stop it, and short of conducting a coup.
Right. And, again, using that example of Game of Thrones, it's just problem after problem after problem. So, like, until you get to the end, it's crazy. And you don't want to go through all of that combat, massive murder and bloodshed. You're trying to prevent a war, potentially. So here you've got those things of, entering into the arena of this political battlefield or this religious, organization or whatever it is that you are, putting yourself up socially against. But if we're going to look at it from that side, what do the players need to be able to handle this kind of game?
Instead of winning your combats through strength of arm with your strength and your dexterity scores, your engagements are instead going to be won through persuasion and deception, and you're gonna be leaning on those. So anyone with a high charisma is going to be useful, or characters that actually have those skills, and even better yet, characters that have expertise in those skills. And there's also certain backgrounds that are going to lend themselves nicely as well.
If you look at a noble, they're already going to be armed with certain information. Whether it's going to be contacts, whether it's the skill of history and knowing how all of this kind of stuff unfolds, all of that is going to be super helpful. But it doesn't stop at just there. All of your mentals are going to be helpful. Perception, based off of your wisdom, is going to be helpful in noticing things, as you're trying to unravel all of this. And that, of course, leads to intelligence with your investigation, because you are absolutely going to have to uncover clues. You're going to have to find the dirt on these political rivals of yours.
And also wisdom and insight with understanding the people that you have to deal with. And backgrounds, we mentioned noble, but we don't stop at noble, because there's some other ones that are also really good in social situations. So in addition to noble, I would look at the charlatan and the spy. Maybe, sometimes James Bond isn't kicking ass. He's at the party. He's at the baccarat table. There's other ways for him to excel as a spy than just fighting and shooting people.
That is indeed true. So, using these things, as ways as building blocks to assemble this kind of character, into, this arena. I actually use this with my kids all the time. Insight is more than just, understanding body language and this and that. It's, reading the message in the words that are spoken, in so much that when you say one thing, while you might be using those words, the message you might be conveying is actually different than the words that you're saying. So being able to understand those kind of things almost has its own little, bit of cipher while you're moving through these, secret rendezvous for this, spy type activity.
So other things for players as well, even though you can just kick the baddie's ass, it's often frowned upon in certain situations to do such. If you're in the King's Hall in his audience chamber, you might not even be allowed to bring weapons with you. And even if you don't need them, it is going to be highly frowned upon if you start enacting violence there.
Absolutely. So this winds up being a very skill heavy, very role play heavy style game. It might not appeal to everyone, but to those who it appeals to, it stands up at the top. And it's yes, that's the kind of game I want to be in.
So another area, for players to look out for and for DMs to kind of use is the idea of proxies, pawns, dupes, fall guys. Yeah. That that you're constantly uncovering these people that you think are the problem, but no, there's even someone behind that. This social villain is the one that might even be hard for you to get at as a player, because you don't actually know who they are yet. You might have a list or a rogues gallery of suspects, but you don't know exactly who it is. Especially, look at Game of Thrones. How hard is it to figure out who the bad guy is there, or if there is even any good guys, right? It could be that. It could be you have this array of people before you, and they're all kind of terrible, but that doesn't mean they're the ones responsible for the thing that you're trying to stop or stop from happening.
Now, I'm gonna go out on a dangerous limb here. I know that there's gonna be some DMs who are gonna, bucket me for saying this, but it definitely speaks to, Nerdarchy's frame of mind when it comes to preparing material. Is, you don't necessarily have to know who your primary villain is when you begin all of this political machinations, because if the players, go up against, who you think, oh, this is the dude, and they defeat it far too quickly, and you don't want the story to end, it does not have to be over. That guy could be a proxy, that guy could be your fall guy. So you've got the ability to have this story ebb and flow, and every time they uncover, another rock, another seashell, oh, here is another thing, another twisting wire that leads back to somebody else. It's like, how many freaking things did this, have, going on? So you absolutely have the ability to kind of go along with the game until the game has, met its natural end, as opposed to the forced end that the players might happen to just stumble upon.
Now, that being said, also, it could be because a person is being magically influenced. I mean, we are playing D&D after all. It could actually not even really be them. They've been replaced by a doppelganger or somebody else that can change shapes. Maybe it is them, but they've been tampered with. They're actually a thrall to the Mind Flayers. We did a video on that not too long ago. Or, like you said, maybe they're just in league with the other person, and the other person is literally the one that's in charge, but this person appears to be the person that's a problem. So it could, and you can always just use red herrings as well.
Yes. If you want more information on building social encounters, check out D&D's Deadliest Encounters, social gatherings, or parties.
Speaking of parties, join Nerdarchy's adventuring party over on Patreon. Every month we have fan games, and we randomly select patrons to be in those.
But that's not all we do. We make monthly content for 5th edition for DMs and players alike. We do weekly live chats, and more.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.